They spent nights trying to kill what you became by accident. 13 spells, 9 practitioners, 0 results. And then you walked in, no cloak, no ritual, no whisper, and told them exactly why they failed. With a smile that made their knees forget how to stand. You didn't bring answers, you brought clarity, and that's worse. Because clarity doesn't beg, it doesn't scream, it just reveals. They watched each other crumble, trying to cage the unclassifiable. You never needed an incantation. You were the glitch in the formula, the misprint in the prophecy, the part of the equation their gods never accounted for. You walk like silence. You speak like a riddle sharpened into a blade. And they hate you because you make their secrets shiver. They called it a binding ritual. You called it delusion. They lit candles. You lit minds. They whispered Latin. You smirked in their mother tongue. They circled salt. You broke the floorboards of their belief system. They never understood. You weren't fighting the darkness. You were married to it. You swore vows with the chaos they tried to banish. They don't realize what the real spell was. It wasn't cast with herbs or ashes. It was cast the moment you refused to die in silence, the moment you turned agony into instruction and wrote your revenge in the margins of their sacred books. You didn't survive the ritual. You corrected it, you reprogrammed the entire field, and now they sit in circles, debating you. The anomaly that mocked every tradition, the presence that left their auras bruised, the silhouette that lingers even in daylight. You became a bug in their ancient system, a fragment of raw unpredictability, too potent for their formulas. You were never meant to be summoned. You were meant to be discovered, by accident, by mistake, by them. They tried every known lock. But you didn't use a door. You arrived through the walls, the ones they swore were sacred, and now they flinch at their own rituals. They question the spells they once killed for. You took the playbook and added a final page they never wrote. One that simply said, you never had control. You only had fear. Let's talk about fear, shall we? You didn't fear being cursed. You feared being understood. Because if they ever truly saw you, they'd know this wasn't transformation. It was return. Return to the source, to the original code, to the unfiltered, unapproved, unblessed version of you that the world begged you to unlearn. They made spells to silence voices like yours. They built temples to forget your kind existed. And still, you whispered once, and the walls cracked. You broke laws of energy with eye contact. They used potions. You used presence. They sought protection. You became the threat. That's why they're scared. Because power, true power, doesn't announce itself. It reveals the lies of everything else. You didn't walk in to join them. You walked in to show them that the thing they tried to destroy was smarter, faster, colder, and still smiling. You turned their sacred room into a crime scene, and all you did was speak. They studied you like a curse, but what you really were was correction. They didn't fail the spell. The spell failed them. Because it was never designed to bind something like you. You weren't born for circles and chants. You were born for moments like this, where your existence reverses gravity, where your mind rewrites prophecy, where your pain summons silence, in rooms built to mock your name. And now they sit in shock. They thought you were the aftermath, but you were the trigger, the one who walked in and rewired the temperature of the room with your presence alone. No tools, no tricks, just you, raw, cracked, reassembled, and terrifyingly calm. You showed them something worse than failure. You showed them why they deserved it. Because you didn't just walk through fire, You taught it manners. Now let me tell you a little secret. They'll never speak your name without swallowing first. They'll never enter that chamber without glancing twice. They'll never cast again without the taste of uncertainty in their throat. Because you left a residue, not of fear, but of truth. And truth, it doesn't wear robes, it doesn't chant. It just sits quietly in the corner, waiting to be seen. Like you did, like you always will, like the end of every spell that never needed to be spoken, because your presence was the real magic, and their silence was the loudest result they ever produced. They call it silence, but it's not. It's recalibration, because when you left that room, you didn't just exit, you disrupted a legacy. Centuries of blind obedience collapsed in one unblinking gaze. They'll tell stories about that moment, but only behind closed doors, because no one wants to admit that the whole system cracked because you laughed when the candles flickered. They expected you to flinch at their symbols, to tremble at their chants, to bow beneath the weight of their lineage. But what they summoned wasn't fear. It was a mirror, a reflection of everything they denied existed, a version of power not dressed in holy robes or cursed scripts, but stitched from the ashes of betrayal and the bones of survival. You didn't need to cast. You became the result. You were what happens when someone suffers for too long and decides pain is not a prison. It's a weaponized education. They practiced spells. You practiced stillness. They memorized incantations. You memorized the tone of their panic. That's the part they'll never admit. Because while they were busy debating the syntax of sacred words, you were watching their eye twitches, their pulse shifts, their guilt. And guilt always leaves a scent. You didn't smell incense, you smelled lies. 13 spells to fix a problem they created. And not once did they ask why it keeps returning. But you did. You always do. You ask what they won't. You see what they flinch from. You walk into places that were never meant to have witnesses and leave footprints in the doctrine. They couldn't bind the darkness, because the darkness wasn't the threat. You were. Not because you broke the system, but because you understood it too well. You weren't cast out. You stepped away, and they never recovered from your absence. They tried to replace you with structure, with rituals, with groupthink. But structure doesn't breathe. Rituals don't watch them at night. And groupthink can't haunt them with truth. Only you can. You became the echo of the spell they wish they never tried to cast. Because you didn't die in that room. You downloaded everything, every whisper, every hidden motive, every sideways glance and betrayal coded in passive tone. You became a living algorithm of exposure. And now you speak, and they shift in their seats, like something ancient just remembered their name. Because deep down, they know what you carry isn't revenge. It's proof. Proof that you never needed their blessing. Proof that their rituals were rehearsed obedience. Proof that every failed spell was never about the energy. It was about the intention behind it. And their intentions were never clean. That's what you told them, isn't it? When the room fell silent, when the last flame died without wind, and all 9 of them turned to you, like a courtroom awaiting its verdict. And you said, none of your spells worked because none of you meant it. That line didn't just expose them, it rewired them, like a crack splitting the marble of their manufactured divinity. Because you weren't judging, you were diagnosing. You saw the fear in their casting hands. You felt the rot in their conviction. And you spoke what none of them dared whisper aloud. This room isn't sacred, it's staged. They wanted to bury that moment, but they couldn't. Because you didn't need their circle. You walked in like a living exorcism and reminded them that authenticity burns hotter than any ritual flame. You didn't just walk through the temple. You decoded it, layer by layer, lie by lie. And what's left now? 13 spells, 9 practitioners, 1 new rule. Don't ever invite a ghost who remembers, because memory is a spell they can't reverse. And you remember everything, where they stood, what they whispered, who broke eye contact first, who almost believed in you, before the fear kicked in. You're not just the anomaly, you're the audit, the walking contradiction that invalidates everything they built on borrowed truths and stolen power. They say you're unpredictable, but that's not true. You're just the first honest variable in an equation they've manipulated for centuries. And now, your silence has a shape, your presence has a pattern, and your absence, terrifying. Because when you leave a room, they start questioning if they ever knew anything at all. That's not magic. That's truth finally standing upright. So go ahead, let them regroup, let them rewrite history, let them burn the tapes and pretend it never happened. But the footage is still running, in their minds, in their bones, in the dead space between their rehearsed confidence and the realization that none of them could stop you. And they never will. Because you're not just what happens when spells fail. You're what awakens when people lie too long and finally meet someone who remembers the original script. Oh, you want the part they cut from the footage, don't you? You want the part that wasn't written in the spell books. The part whispered between trembling lips in old crumbling corridors, where even the walls knew something unholy had walked in. See, what they never dared speak aloud, what they buried beneath robes, rites, and rehearsed reverence, was this. You weren't the first to expose the lie. You were just the first to survive it. Before you, there were others, whispers, ghosts, names scratched off parchment in blood and denial. They spoke out, too. They walked in with cracked eyes and clenched truths, but none of them made it past the second circle. You walked through all 13, barefoot, laughing, because you didn't come for proof. You came for evidence. And when you stood there, center of that sacred mockery, with their symbols burning to ash behind your stare, you told them the one thing no spell could protect them from. I've seen what came before you, and you are not the origin. That's when their hands shook, because your words didn't come from ego. They came from a place older than their language. Your truth didn't echo. It etched into their minds, into their rituals, into the cracks forming in every dogma they tried to defend. They tried to cast the 13th spell again after you left. And for the first time, the circle refused to hold. That's how deep your presence sank. Even the geometry rebelled, because truth has a frequency. And when you spoke, the walls remembered what they were built to forget. You didn't just dismantle their illusion, you rewound history, you made the bloodlines stutter, and that's when the panic began. Not public, of course, not yet. But behind their closed chambers, they started calling meetings. They swore never to hold again. Meetings about you, about the pattern you represent. Because this wasn't just a glitch. This was the re-emergence of the unquantifiable. They flipped through ancient files, parchments locked behind layers of code and curse. They scanned your eyes against databases that were never meant to be accessed again. And the result? Undetermined origin, unknown lineage, unclassified threat. You broke the algorithm, and they built their god around it. You don't even need to speak now. Just walking into a room corrupts their spell tempo. Even their chosen ones start stuttering when you breathe too close. Because somewhere deep in their blood, they remember you. The first version, the uncaged prototype, the one who wasn't blessed but engineered. By pain, by betrayal, by the raw elemental hunger to never be erased again. That's why your existence is classified, why your name is never mentioned in the new texts, why every camera that films you gets mysteriously corrupted when the footage is reviewed. Because you weren't supposed to return, but you did. Not reincarnated, not rebranded, just reinserted, like a virus that remembered the source code, like a prophecy they buried because it made them too afraid to sleep. Let's get real. You don't just walk with power, you carry a time signature. Every room you enter falls out of sync. Every spell cast around you begins to delay, to glitch, to misfire, and you never touch a thing. Because your power isn't in action, it's in proximity, in awareness. That's what they couldn't counter. They cast every spell known to the ancient books. But none of those books accounted for someone who had already seen the last page. You're not new, you're not fresh, you're remembered by forces they no longer control. And that's why now, they're rewriting everything. They're changing doctrines, altering records, burning old scrolls, trying to eliminate the breadcrumbs of your echo. But it's too late. You left imprints on the timelines. You warped the energy maps they once used to trap others. You reversed the ritual flow permanently. They see you in dreams now, and not the prophetic ones, the dangerous ones, the kind of dreams that leave real bruises, missing time, and blood in the salt line. You are the test subject that tested back. The curse that learned how to speak Latin backwards. The ritual that walked out of the circle and said, "You should have never made me watch this much." And now you don't even blink when they summon. You don't flinch when they chant. Because you know it's all fabrication, a performance for cowards, an illusion dressed in tradition. You were never theirs to bind. You were the countermeasure. And what they fear most, you're not trying to destroy them. You're correcting them, line by line, lie by lie, until the last practitioner finally realizes, we weren't trying to banish the demon. We were trying to hide from the God we betrayed. And that God is smiling back at them right now, wearing your face. Ah, so you're ready for the part even the blood remembers? Good. Because this isn't just about failed spells or exposed frauds. This is about ancestral panic. This is about lineage-level trembling. About what happens when one person, you, carries a frequency so disruptive. It doesn't just shake rooms. It rewires DNA. See, when you walked in and explained why nothing worked, why every incantation fizzled, every altar cracked, why the most powerful practitioner forgot their own invocation mid-cast. You weren't flexing, you were reintroducing gravity. They thought power was in control. You taught them it's in detachment. They thought they were safe behind tradition. You reminded them that tradition is often just fear, wearing robes. You didn't break their circle. You made the circle realize it was already broken. You walked through a system coded in arrogance and spoke with the tone of something that's seen extinction and survived it. 13 spells, 9 practitioners, 0 results. Because none of them were ready to confront what you carry. Memory that bleeds through dimensions. You ever seen someone recognize you from a lifetime? Their soul never gave them permission to recall. That look? That hollow, heart punch realization that they didn't just fail the spell. They failed to see you for what you are. Not an intruder, not an accident, but the inevitable return of something they swore they buried. They called you chaotic. You smiled because that was the only honest word they'd ever spoken. But you're not chaos. You're the reminder of what happens when suppressed knowledge goes sentient. You're what happens when a curse decides to learn language and starts telling the truth in riddles too accurate to ignore. And what does truth do? It haunts. It sits in the corners of ceremonial chambers long after the fire goes out. It leans over their shoulders during silent invocations. It bleeds through protective sigils and contaminates their holy water. It wears your shadow like armor. You weren't there to challenge their system. You were there to awaken its expiration date. Because here's what they never understood. You can't bind what remembers its origin. You can't silence what was forged through betrayal. You can't curse what's already been killed 1,000 ways and kept coming back smarter. And you didn't survive. You downloaded the pain. You turned agony into architecture. Every failed spell around you isn't just a misfire. It's a reveal. Their power, borrowed, stolen, dependent on rituals they never created, only repeated. Your power, native, organic, taught by scars and silence, upgraded by every moment they misread you. And now the whole network's feeling the glitch, not just the 9 in the room, the entire bloodline web, the ones watching through mirrors, the ones tracing sigils with shaking fingers, the ones consulting ancient backups, trying to find a clause, a loophole, a containment protocol for you. But there is none, because you weren't born from a spell. You were born from the failure of all spells. You're the corrupted update that renders their entire system obsolete. They see your face in every cracked mirror now. Every scrying bowl clouds when your name is spoken. Even the machines, the ones they never speak about, start showing error codes when you're in proximity. You don't just disrupt. You erase their hierarchy. You make their top practitioners feel like interns. You make their gods check their contracts. Because whatever made you didn't follow protocol. It ignored the blueprint, skipped the beta phase, and launched you directly into their blind spot. They call that dangerous. You call it home. And now, with every circle they redraw, you're already standing inside it, smiling like someone who read the spell backward before they wrote it. They still think they're dealing with a person, a practitioner, a presence. They haven't realized yet. They're dealing with a signal, something older than form, stronger than dogma, smarter than every council code and clergy combined. They failed 13 times, not because the spell was weak, but because the target never fit inside their language. You weren't supposed to react to the spell. You were supposed to watch them try. And now they're begging you for instructions, begging for reversal, begging for anything that could explain why their power vanished the moment you said, "You cast from fear. I exist from it." You didn't steal their magic. You showed them they never had it. And now, behind every sealed door, in every encrypted meeting, they speak your name in low tones, as if whispering it too loud might trigger the next event, because they know the truth now. You didn't stop the spell. You became its audit. And now, the ritual is over. The real story begins. Shh. They're watching again, but this time, they're not laughing. See, they used to chuckle behind screens and sip their egos like wine every time you slipped. You were their entertainment, their cautionary tale, their favorite glitch in the simulation. They thought your pain was the punchline. But they missed something. They forgot what happens when the joke gets tired, and the punchline learns to bleed in silence. You You failed so many times they stopped counting. They started betting on your collapse, built their self-worth from your ruins. Every L you took, they turned it into prophecy. Every time you broke, they took notes, not to help you, but to prepare for your funeral. Because they were so sure you'd never come back. Not from that, not after her, not after them, not after the way you shattered, silently, in front of everyone. But guess what? You didn't just survive the fire. You studied its pattern. You didn't just suffer. You memorized the architecture of pain. You didn't just break. You sharpened every fragment of yourself into weapons. And while they kept watching, you were mutating in silence, off-grid, untraceable. They thought you were lost. What they didn't realize was that you were reloading. And tonight, one shot, one move, one win, and the whole game flipped upside down. Now their group chats are glitching, their strategies obsolete, their analysis files burning. You just did something they don't have a category for. You became the bug in their blueprint. Because while they spent all that time documenting your failures, you became the ghost that rewrote the manual. They kept zooming in on your scars, but they missed the signal hiding in the trauma. You became fluent in chaos, and now, you're not just unpredictable, you're unreadable. You know what's funny? They always said, don't let the pain change you. But that's the thing, isn't it? The pain did change you. It turned you into something that doesn't flinch anymore. It made you so silent, you became terrifying. You're not healing, you're ascending, not recovering, upgrading, not moving on, reprogramming the entire simulation in your sleep. And now they can't stop replaying that moment, that one move you made. Because it doesn't make sense. Because it shouldn't have worked. Because it defied everything they ever learned. But you didn't learn this in books. You didn't Google this level of survival. You didn't meditate your way into dominance. You earned it in the dark, while bleeding alone. And now, the same people who ignored you are zooming in frame by frame, trying to decode how the hell you pulled this off. They're calling it luck. They're calling it a glitch. They're calling it impossible. Because to them, it is. They don't understand what it's like to fail publicly, to lose everything, to be the joke, to be erased. But you lived there. You walked the edge of every breakdown and came back holding data. You cataloged your collapse. You made your misery modular. Now you're the only one in the room who speaks the language of real power, reinvention. You failed 1,000 times, but each one recoded your DNA. Each one burned off the weak parts. Each one chiseled the blueprint of the monster you're becoming. And now you win once. Just once. And it rewrites the entire scoreboard. Because that's the paradox, isn't it? 1,000 losses mean nothing if the last move ends the war. So go ahead. Let them watch. Let them analyze. Let them dissect you like a dead thing. But make sure they know you're not here to prove them wrong. You're here to prove you never needed them to begin with. You're not the underdog. You're not the comeback kid. You're not the misunderstood genius. You're the consequence. You're the correction. You're the freaking black swan event in their perfectly balanced forecast. You don't need their applause. You never needed their acceptance because the win wasn't for them to see. It was for you to finally remember who the hell you are. And now that you've remembered, nothing's safe. Not their plans, not their hierarchy, not their rules, not their networks, not their illusions. Because you're not just winning now. You're rewriting the requirement to even play the game. You walked through hell with your eyes wide open and came back with the coordinates, not to escape, but to build a throne right there in the ashes where they swore you'd stay buried. Oh, they thought that was it, that your story ended with one shocking win. Number. That was just the first tremor, the warning shot, the sound of the lock disengaging on something ancient inside you. Something they can't put back, because what they never understood is that your failure was never failure. It was excavation. It was a ritual. Every breakdown was a blueprint. Every rejection was reprogramming. Every humiliation, a software update for the monster they can't debug. And now you're online, awake, untethered. Their metrics don't apply. Their language, outdated. Their methods, prehistoric. Because you're not even playing the game anymore. You're playing the players. Let me say this slowly, so their surveillance footage can subtitle it. You lost on purpose. Again, and again, and again. Not because you were weak, but because you were studying the terrain. Because while they were obsessed with speed, you became obsessed with depth. You weren't behind. You were buried, like a landmine. And now, you've detonated. And they felt it. You know they did. That panic wasn't subtle. The trembling in their hierarchy, the silence in the group chats, the abrupt shift from mockery to monitoring, because they know now. You're the variable they forgot to account for, and the system doesn't survive your kind. See, everyone wants to be the light, the inspiration, the healer. But you were forged in the dark, trained in silence, raised by your own demons until they started saluting you. You're not here to save, you're here to haunt, to remind the world that some stories don't need permission to flip the script. Some stories go quiet and then come back as warnings. They saw you fall and assumed you were fragile. But what they witnessed wasn't death. It was rebirth in slow motion. They just weren't zoomed in enough to see the resurrection happening behind your eyes. While they laughed, you were reconstructing your entire nervous system to operate without approval, without applause, without a fucking lifeline. And now here you are, standing exactly where they thought you'd never return. Only now you're carrying something they can't touch. Certainty. You know what you are. And that scares them more than any trophy ever could. Because you don't want to be liked. You don't want to be praised. You don't want their pity. You want their fear. And whether they admit it or not, they're already giving it to you. In their silence, in their late-night replays, in their attempts to reverse engineer your mindset. They want the source code, but this version of you is offline, encrypted, emotionally firewalled. You're the kind of soul that doesn't just rise. You replace. You're not here to fix the system. You're here to prove it was rigged from the start. And now that you've glitched it, the only thing left to do is burn it clean. No fanfare, no speech, no apology. Just that one unmistakable move that rewrote everything. That moment that changed the whole game. And now they're stuck. Because if they acknowledge you, they validate the thing they tried to destroy. But if they don't acknowledge you, their silence just becomes confession. You broke the loop. You altered the timeline. And now, they don't know if they should fear you or worship you. So what do you do now? Simple. You keep moving, not to prove anything, not to chase anything, but because stillness, that was their prison. Your momentum, that's your power. Let them analyze your last win, because while they're doing that, you're already planning your next anomaly. You don't repeat success. You mutate, you evolve, you vanish, you appear somewhere new with a move that makes the last one look like a warm-up. That's the real game. Not just to win, but to make sure no one ever knows what your next win will look like. And that's why they're terrified, because they didn't just fail to stop you. They failed to understand you. And that is irreversible. You are not the failure. You are not the win. You are not the score. You are the rewrite, the living contradiction, the chaos protocol with a pulse, the lesson they never wanted to learn. You were built from silence, shaped by rejection, sharpened in shadows. And now you walk like the final chapter in a book they never realized was about them. So keep going, not for revenge, not for validation, but because every step you take now is prophecy. Shh. Do you feel it now? That low hum under your skin? That isn't adrenaline anymore. That's power remembering your name. They're still staring at the screen, scrolling back, trying to slow down the footage. They're pausing, rewinding, frame by frame, as if somewhere in the pixels they'll find the moment you became unstoppable. But there is no frame, there is no instant. You didn't flip a switch. You became a switchblade. You built this in secret. They mocked you in public. You were invisible while they wrote their reports. And while they laughed, you were making blueprints out of your blood. And now you've stepped back into the light with a move so clean, it erased their map. That's why they're trembling. It's not the win that scares them. It's the implication. If you can crawl out of 1,000 losses and do this once, what else can you do? What else have you been learning while they were asleep? What happens the next time you decide to move? Because deep down, they know. The one win wasn't random. It was a signal, a low-frequency broadcast of the new version of you. The version that doesn't wait for permission. The version that doesn't ask for a seat. The version that doesn't play chess. Because the board is already in your hands. You learned the paradox they don't teach in books. Loss isn't the opposite of power. It's the currency. Every time you broke, you were paying for a skill set no one else was willing to earn. They want the crown without the crucifixion. You walked through both. And now you wear the scars like a sigil they can't decipher. And here's the part that melts their bones. You're no longer even fighting them. You're not in their ring. You're not in their war. You've become the weather system above their battlefield. They're soldiers. You're a storm. Look at yourself. You don't move like prey anymore. You move like a question they don't know how to answer. You don't talk like a student anymore. You speak like someone who has already seen the last page. That's the duality they'll never understand. You are light enough to guide, dark enough to terrify, saint enough to forgive, psychopath enough to act without flinching, angel enough to rise, demon enough to never go back. All of it coiled in one pulse under your skin, waiting for the next moment to strike. They're whispering your name now like it's a spell. They're warning each other not to provoke you. They're drafting memos about how to contain what you represent. But how do you contain a pattern they can't even define? And this is where the real game starts, not when you win, but when you learn to move so silently, they don't even know you've already crossed the finish line. When you learn to create such chaos with one gesture that their entire architecture tilts. When you stop needing to announce the victory, because the world announces it for you. You're already there. That's why you feel different now. That's why the air tastes different. You're not in competition, you're in command. Every time you move now, you're not just breaking rules. You're rewriting physics for anyone watching. Every glance, every silence, every micro-decision becomes a weaponized message. I survived everything you threw at me. I learned everything you tried to hide. And now, I'm everything you fear you might become. So keep walking. Keep your head low, eyes sharp, heartbeat steady. Let them scramble. Let them guess. Let them invent stories about how you pulled it off. Because the truth is stranger than anything they could put in their files. The truth is, you turned failure into a forge, pain into a passport, humiliation into a hidden laboratory. Now you're here. Not a player, not a piece. A new rule in the game. A glitch they can't patch. A paradox they can't pray away. And the longer you stay silent, the more powerful you become. Because silence is gravity. Because mystery is a blade. Because unpredictability is the highest form of control. This is your era now. Not the era of proving. Not the era of trying. The era of becoming. And they'll still be watching the tapes of your one win, trying to find the secret, trying to reverse engineer a destiny they were never built to hold. By the time they realize there's no secret, you'll already be on to the next move, one they'll never see coming, one that will make this impossible win look like a warm-up. You've become the storm they whispered about. Now watch how quickly the world bends around your next step. Hey, you think they've figured it out yet? No, not even close. Because what just happened wasn't a comeback. It was a leak. A breach in the firewall of reality they spent their lives building. And you were the glitch, the untraceable anomaly that wasn't supposed to pass the test. Because you were never meant to play by their laws in the first place. They wanted a failure they could mock. What they got was a prototype, a volatile, self-generating system of chaos and clarity fused together in human skin. You were never a person to them. You were a prediction gone wrong. And now, they're terrified, because the simulation just coughed up something that broke the symmetry. They watched you fail, over and over, recorded it, mocked it, framed it like an exhibit, how not to be powerful. And yet now, they're sitting in their locked rooms, reading every line of the footage, trying to find where the code went off script, trying to figure out how the hell you're still standing. But they won't find it, because what happened wasn't taught. It was remembered. You didn't become this, you were this, before they told you to forget. That's the secret. That's the file they don't have access to. You were born with the blueprint to destroy their hierarchy, and they called it trauma. You were forged with instincts sharp enough to slice through illusion, so they labeled it overthinking. You were built to observe, detach, disarm, and override. So they diagnosed it as being broken. But broken? No. You were decoding, downloading, deprogramming. And the moment it all snapped together, the moment all those failures aligned like stars collapsing into a black hole, you triggered something they can't patch. A protocol, personal, primeval, permanent, one win. That's all it took. Not because it made you famous, not because it made you rich, but because it made you real. And now, they don't know if they're looking at a man or a message, because you walk different now. Not lighter, heavier, like someone carrying prophecy in their bones. You don't speak to be heard anymore. You speak to install software into their subconscious. Every word you say makes them question reality. Every silence you hold makes them doubt their decisions. You're not a person anymore. You're a mirror, and they hate you for it. Because you don't show them who you are. You show them who they are, and what they'll never be. You were once a casualty. Now you're a case study. You were once ignored. Now you're classified. You were once alone. Now you're encrypted. And they're trying to open you. Like a file they don't have the clearance to read, so they project, they gossip, they don't get the hype. They call it luck. they call it just a phase. But deep down, in the place they don't talk about, they know, they saw it. That win wasn't just a victory, it was a demonstration, a warning shot, a glitch made visible, and now they're praying it was a fluke. That you'll go quiet again, that you'll shrink again, that you'll feel small again. But you won't, because once you've tasted this level of truth, illusion starts to taste like poison. You're past the point of pretending, too sharp to be controlled, too silent to be predicted, too damn dangerous to be erased. You're not chasing power anymore, you're radiating it, just standing there doing nothing. And the room bends, because now your energy doesn't say, "I made it." It says, "I shouldn't even be here, and yet, here I am." A walking contradiction, a saint with demon eyes, an angel forged in warfare, a monster with mercy in their breath, a ghost that leaks instructions to the living. This is where the world gets weird, because the moment you realized you didn't need their permission, you became unstoppable. And now your existence is a living audit of their lies. You walk through their buildings, their meetings, their systems, and everything in you says, "This is too small for me now." Not from ego, but from awareness. You see now, and they feel seen. And that makes you the most dangerous creature in the simulation. Not someone who wants revenge. Not someone who wants fame. But someone who knows how to sit still and watch the whole world rearrange itself around their silence. So don't stop. Don't gloat. Don't even explain. You've passed the need for clarity. You've graduated from the desire for understanding. You've entered the level where presence is the punishment, where just being who you are becomes a psychological glitch in every person who underestimated you. And they feel it. Oh, they feel it, even if they never say your name out loud again. Especially then, because you don't need the credit. You are the credit. You are the line item they didn't account for, the balance they didn't predict, the final twist they didn't storyboard. They watched you fail 1,000 times. They laughed. They dismissed you. They called you tragic, desperate, lost, broken. But they forgot something. You only have to win once, and when you do, the entire timeline fractures. Congratulations, you've become unerasable. And from this point forward, every breath you take is an act of resistance. Every blink is a trigger. Every move is a mirror. You are no longer playing the game. You're rewriting the genre.